When I was a teenager, I very nearly died of drowning. It was scary. I was at a water park in the wave pool, and you know how people like to congregate their tubes together? I got stuck under that. And as any young teenager would do, I panicked. So you know those cartoons where a bunch of people are sitting down and someone's under them trying to get up and they're like, oh, oh, oh. I was the one under them trying to get up. The fear of drowning is a terrifying situation. It's a situation where you can easily panic. And today in Jonah chapter 2, this is where we pick up. This is the situation that Jonah has found himself in. If you remember in chapter 1, God told him to go to Nineveh to warn them about what they were doing. And instead of doing that, he decided to try and flee to the farthest place he could think of, Tarshish. Still have a hard time saying that word. I hear people trying to say it now. But Jonah's decision caused a storm that endangered not only his life, but the lives of an entire crew of people. His decisions did not just affect him, and the storm of his own making caused him to be thrown overboard. Very often we find ourselves in storms of our own making. Decisions that we have made that have caused a really difficult situation. Now we also talked about how not every bad thing that happens in life is a direct result of our decisions, but sometimes it is. And sometimes God will cause a storm to help us to wake up and see the reality of this situation that we have caused ourselves. And when we find ourselves living in a storm of our own making, there is really only one true escape. There's only one way out of it. And so I have to ask you today, when you find yourself in a storm, when you find yourself drowning, where is your trust? Really? And I have to add, really, because it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, I'm a Christian, I trust in God, everything's going to be okay. It's quite another thing to really sit down and pull back and say, my trust is in God. And so I want you to look at your life. I want you to take inventory and ask yourself, where is your trust? Really? Is it in your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your friends? Is it in the things that you do? Is it in the distractions that you fill all the empty space with? Or is it in God alone who can save, who can justify, who can pull you out of that water? Jonah has found himself swallowed alive. And he has a choice to make here. And the choice that he makes here will determine his fate. And so I have to ask the second question, what is it that has swallowed you alive? We've all had that experience where we're in a situation that has completely swallowed us whole, and we don't know what to do. Is it the food you consume so you don't have to think about anything else? Is it the TV and sports that you delve so deeply into that you don't have to think about the other stuff? Is it the sex that helps you forget just how bad you feel? Is it your work that you do so often and for so long and so hard that you don't have time for anything else? Or is it something I haven't mentioned? There are a million things out there that, if we allow them to, can swallow us whole and consume our lives. What is the storm that's been created that you need rescuing from? And are you willing to make the choice? Are you willing to take the time? Are you willing to pull yourself back to recognize that you need the rescue? We talked last week a lot about how Jonah had some major faults. And we're going to talk about those in the next couple weeks. Because, make no mistake, Jonah had some major faults. But for all of his problems, in chapter 2, Jonah gives a very good picture, a very good idea of what it looks like to truly trust in God. Because you see, Jonah chapter 2 gives us some insights into Jonah's thoughts while he was sinking. See, Jonah didn't wait until he had been swallowed. He didn't wait until he was already dead to try and do something. You see, while he was sinking, while he was being dragged down, that's when he turned to God. Better late than never. Are you waiting to get better? Are you saying to yourself, oh, well, I'll wait and I'll get a little better, I'll get over the easy stuff, and then I'll call on God? Or are you saying, it's not so bad yet, I still have a ways to go, things aren't that bad, so I'll just wait until I really need God. Fun fact, you can't do the easy stuff either. Why do we wait to call on God when we know that He is our only escape, when we know that He is the only rescuer? Why do we wait until the easy stuff is done? Why do we wait until, until I really desperately need it? We really desperately need it now. And Jonah recognized this. A little bit late, but he recognized it because he's already overboard. But Jonah chapter 2, starting in verse 1. We read, "Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the fish's belly. And he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and He answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and You heard my voice." See, Jonah recognizes his place in this event. And he recognizes that he is not in control. And this is while he was sinking. Do you think you can do it yourself? There was no way that Jonah was going to swim hard enough to swim out of the storm. He recognized that there was nothing left to do. There was nowhere left to go but God. And so in verse 3, he says, "For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your billows and your waves passed over me. Then I said, I have been cast out of your sight. Yet, I will look again toward your holy temple." You see, Jonah had some major flaws, but he also had some major trust in God. He's saying, even though I'm sinking, yet I know that I will look again towards your holy temple. He trusts that God is going to take care of him, even in this. This is why I don't think that Jonah was scared to go to Nineveh. Because for all the horrible ways that the Ninevites treated people who they did not like, for all the horrible, horrible things that they did, which I'm not going to go into here, pretty sure that Jonah realized and recognized that God could take care of him regardless of the situation he was in. This is the point that we need to come to. This is the starting point that we need to get to, where we're willing to let go and say, I can't do it. There's nothing that I can do. We have to let go of ourselves to place our trust in God. Because as long as we're holding on to our strength, as long as I'm holding on to that bit that says, oh, well, I can do it, my trust is not in God. And it requires us to let go. If Jonah had told himself, oh, well, I still have some strength left, I'll swim my way out, probably wouldn't have been reading the book of Jonah right now. And so recognizing that, we get to verse 5, where he says, "The waters surrounded me, even to my soul. The deep closed around me. Seaweeds wrapped around my head. I went down to the moorings of the mountains. The earth with its bars closed behind me forever. Yet you have brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you, into your holy temple." See, in recognizing that he is completely and utterly in God's hands, he is also recognizing that he is completely and utterly under God's control, and that God alone can provide his escape. Personally, if I'm in this situation where I'm sinking to the bottom of the sea and seaweeds are wrapping around my head, I'm panicking. And yet, isn't that the position that we so often find ourselves in today? Maybe not literally. But in our lives, so often we wait for so long to call on God that we're reaching the bottom of the sea with all the pressure that it contains. And we're drowning. And if we refuse to call on the only one who can save, then we're going to die. See, Jonah had to take action here. And there was really only one action he could take at this point, and that was calling on God. And sometimes that's the only thing that we can do. Sometimes things are so hard and so bad, and there's so much pressure that we can't move. And all we can do is pray and say, save me. To the only one that can. To the only one that will. And if there is an action that we can take, if there is an action we need to take, we need to take it. Sometimes we can do more than pray. Sometimes we can pray and then start moving forwards. But the key is to take action regardless of the form that action requires. Because we serve a God of second chances. And third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and as high as you can count. And then some more. See, in verse 8, Jonah says, "Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. But I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord." So the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. See, Jonah understands that he has a duty, he has an obligation to follow God, to obey God, to do what he says, regardless of his personal feelings. If you're anything like me, you'll find yourself more than you would like saying, "Oh, well, I'm not really feeling it right now. I'll do it later." "Oh, I'm exhausted right now. I'll do it later." I understand that we're not called to do it later. We're called to follow now. So God, just as he does through the entire Bible, just as he does throughout your life, provides Jonah another chance. You see, we serve a God who can bring us out of the depths, who can take us where we need to be, where we cannot get to on our own. And so I have to return to the questions I asked before. Having said all this, we have to return to the beginning. Will you turn to your distraction, to your entertainment, even to other people, to cover up your struggles? Or will you turn to God and take action and do what needs to be done today? This is your choice. This is no one else's. I cannot make the choice for you. Your husband or wife cannot make this choice for you. You are the only person on this planet who can make the choice to follow and call on God or try to swim out of the storm on your own. You're the only one who can choose to give your life to Christ, to be buried with him in baptism, to be raised again, to be remade in his image, perfect and holy and pure in the sight of the Savior. You're the only one as a child of God who can choose to follow the Father. And now is the time to make that choice. Today is the day to make that choice. Won't you make it? As we stand, as we sing.